All right, welcome back. Happy Monday morning. I think it's Monday morning for most in our community that would join us for this conversation today. So, good Monday morning to you. Welcome back. Just a heads up, the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting is coming up November 1st through 3rd in Austin, Texas. That's 5 weeks away at this point. 5.5 weeks away. So today I wanted to continue to give you a chance to hear from the fantastic lineup of speakers that we have. That's really going to make this a must-attend conference. I'm really looking forward to this. So if you haven't heard about it before, it's the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting. It's the business conference for entrepreneur architects. In fact, it's the first ever live conference that's dedicated just to small firm entrepreneur architects. I started this live stream series a little over a month ago to introduce you to all of our speakers, and now I'm bringing them all back, which is kind of fun, at least for me. I don't know about for them, but I'm bringing them all back to give you a little teaser about their talks. So, good morning. My name is Jeff Eccles. If we've never met before, I'm the Vice President of Community Development at EntreArchitect. It's the largest worldwide community of entrepreneur architects, and I'm also the host of Context and Clarity Live, which is an added bonus for me because I get to speak to a lot of these speakers on that side of the table as well. So to continue this series today, though, I'm joined by someone that I have really enjoyed getting to know over the last couple of months, and someone who has an expertise and also an approach that I think you'll really appreciate and benefit from. So let me introduce to you Megan Dahle. Megan is the anti-accountant whose superpowers begin where financial statements end. She's a virtual CFO, the author of Getting Your Numbers Right, and the creator of Hiring for Profit. And she'll present one of the sessions at the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting. So, Megan, welcome back, and thanks for joining me on this beautiful Monday morning. Glad
Oh,
that
thank you
you're.
for having me back. I don't mean to sound so surprised, but thank you for having me back.
It is great to have you here. Megan and I were talking beforehand. It has been a lot of fun to get to know each other and to have all of these conversations over the past month, 2 months, something like that, whatever it's been. And so we have fun. We have fun, and I think this conversation is going to be fun. But I'm really looking forward to November and meeting in person for the first time, which again is part of the bizarre nature of the past 2 or 3 years, getting to know people really well and never having met them in person. But it's great to have you here. And we, the first time we talked on the Meet the Speaker series, I gave a little bit of an intro, like I just did, and you talked a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do. So, in case there's anybody that doesn't know yet, or anybody that missed that conversation, can you give us a little bit of a recap? What do you
Yeah,
do? Why do you do it?
I love working with creative people, right? Like I have a creative brain myself, but it just happens to have a little extra punch of some math in there. Um, and while I wanted to be an architect and then interior design and all of these different things, that just wasn't in the cards for me. But the math is, and so I get to hang out with the people who create the beautiful things and help them translate that into a more profitable business, right? Like sometimes it's just they don't want to deal with the worksheets, they don't want to deal with the financial statements, but they still want to have somebody that has their eye on what needs to have their eye on. So that's where I come in painting the picture, like sometimes literally with graphs and pretty things instead of spreadsheets, and paint the picture of what's really going on and what direction they're headed.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because first of all, we've got to be intentional about no, we've got to be intentional about our own success. But when we boil that down, we get sort of myopic about it. We have to be intentional about our financial success, which many of us haven't been trained in that. I've got to go teach pro practice tomorrow, 2 classes of pro practice tomorrow. And what I tell every one of my students is, listen, there are generations of us who didn't learn anything about the business of architecture when we were in architecture school. So that's what I love about you, right? You're taking, hey, you've got to be intentional. Hey, I get the creative piece of it. I love the creative piece of it, but you got to be intentional about success. Here's a way, right? Here's a way to translate that maybe for all of us that would rather draw pretty pictures and and look at picture books
Right.
than we would spreadsheets. So I love your approach and I love what you're all about here. So again, thanks for this. Um, as we look 5 weeks out at Austin and going to see the bats under the bridge and all those things, you're you're going to talk about how financial statements are, maybe they're useless, maybe they're not. I don't know. What are you going to talk about in Austin?
Well, I think there's a lot of misperceptions about what it means to know your numbers. And people like to throw that term out. You got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers.
Yeah,
And like, okay, I've got my balance sheet. I kind of understand how it works. I've got my income statement. I kind of know how it works, but it still feels that like something's missing. Everybody knows something that I don't know. And I think it's how everybody's saying, know your numbers, know your numbers. And that's the first place that we would go, right?
yeah,
But generally, that's just historical. Like if we're on a
mhm,
timeline, and I think we've talked about this before, like that stuff that's in your balance sheet and in your income statement, while it's useful, it's more like a prequel to a movie than it is like this is where my anxiety, what's going to happen to my business, what's going to happen to my employees, what's going to happen to my family. We need to be able to see this even more so than we need to be able to see the historical stuff. So many times, like even when I was working in big businesses, I'd get into that monthly financial meeting and we'd pull out our statements, and the powers that be would immediately open the income statement, flip to the back page in the bottom right hand number and say, yep, that sounds about right. Right, like there was nothing new or revealing or revelatory on that. It's like, yep, that's what we expected. Okay.
yeah,
And even SEC filings come with 97 or 200 pages of stuff
right.
that explains the financial statements. Um, and so, really, my heart is with these small businesses, truly like 1 to 5, maybe 10 employees, where it's just, I want to do the thing that I'm good at. That's where I really enjoy it. And how can we get visibility on the things that you need visibility on in order to make that more fun?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I'm going to say hi to Mark Zweig. Hi, Mark. So Megan is a past Context and Clarity Live guest. Mark is a past Context and Clarity Live guest. I love both of these two people, by the way. Should get the two of them on Context and Clarity Live at the same time. That'd be a lot of fun.
Ooh.
Um, Mark says one of the greatest failings in the architecture and engineering business is not training people in the numbers of this business, and I think that's right. One of the things that you mentioned, Megan, when we were talking on Context and Clarity Live was the idea of numbers telling a story and numbers having a purpose. Each dollar has a job type of thing.
Mhm.
And I love that. You're saying, hey, when we're looking at that financial statement, it's historical. We're looking backwards. What are we going to do from here forward? And what do all these numbers mean? And what are we going to do with these numbers? I love that approach.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, it's one thing to look at your balance sheet and see, like, oh, I've got $50,000 in the bank, let's say. Like,
Yeah,
that's so meaningless. Outside of context,
yep,
that's so meaningless. How much of that actually belongs to your business? How much of that is other people's money? How long is that going to last? What is that paying for? Like past work or future work? And so to know, like, okay, yes, I have $50,000 in the bank. I know that 20 of that belongs to tax. I know that 10 of that is actually paying for something that we're going to be doing a month from now. So that's got to sit tight. And, just having the job, like you said, give your money a job. Your money's got to have a job when it comes in. And if you can see that this anxiety that's hanging out of, oh, what's going to happen, really starts to assuage itself, even if it's bad news, like just the knowing is really, really a relief to a lot of business owners.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I was talking with my pro practice class, or one of the pro practice classes a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about financial aspects of the firm, and I was trying for them. I was trying because they're college students, obviously, and this was undergrad class. So they're 22 years old or 21 years old, something like that. And I'm trying to relate it to, okay, the numbers that you have to deal with, right? You've got your rent, you've got your beer money, you've got your gas for your car or your bus fare, whatever your transportation is, all of those things. And so whatever's coming in, each one of those, each dollar is going to be assigned to something, and we've got to understand the things that we have as monthly expenses, and trying to make that relatable to them. And I think the way that you approach it, the way that you talk about it, is easy for us novices to get our heads wrapped around.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that's kind of the goal, right? Like
Yeah,
judge-free numbers, like just having that starting point of
yeah,
it's okay. We're gonna start. Nobody's gonna be looking over your shoulder going, what were you thinking a year ago when you did that, right? Like that's not
yeah,
helpful in any way, shape, or form. That's actually one of the first questions I get from one of my from many of my clients is, how is this compared to everybody else? Well, it's not a comparison contest. We're
yeah,
gonna find out.
yeah,
And you're okay. We will find a way for you to be okay. And we're gonna figure this out and you're going to understand how the money is moving. And not just that, like the time as well. Mapping that out is like the time and the money of what is happening in the future. And that deep breath of, oh, I have a plan. I know what's happening for the next 3 to 6 months.
yeah. I think that's a great point. Let me say hi to Chris Novelli, who's in Massachusetts. Thanks for joining us today. And Christian, who is in Ithaca, New York. They're both on Facebook, which is a good reminder for me that if you're on Facebook right now and you're watching and maybe you're commenting and you're going, hey, my comments aren't showing up on the screen like Christian's are or Mark's are or Chris's are. It's because you're in a private Facebook group, probably. And there's some privacy policies that Facebook has, which are fantastic. Um, Type open another tab. Don't do this in the browser window that you have open right now. Open another tab, type chat.restream.io/fb, like Facebook, into your browser window there. And a couple of clicks later, you'll give Facebook permission to communicate with Restream, which is this platform that we're using here. And your comments will show up just like the others. Mark is over on LinkedIn, so that's a different situation, and he's sharing some good wisdom as well. So join the conversation. Put a question in if you'd like. Comment. We've got a couple looking forward to joining us in Austin, Texas, again November 1st through 3rd. And I'll give you the URL to get more information about that here in just a minute. But right now, we're talking with Megan Dahle. She's one of the presenters. She's a virtual CFO. She wears a cape. She's an anti an anti accountant in sort of a superhero vision type way. And so we're talking about her approach and then what she's going to talk about in Austin when we get there in about 5 weeks. So we've touched on looking forward and backwards with the numbers, and you were just talking about the fact that it's not a competition, right? My my numbers are different than Christian's numbers, are different than Chris's numbers, are different than Mark's numbers, and I wonder. I could totally see how this could be. Is that one of our biggest hangups? Is it, oh, I've been trying to do this on my own as a small
Uh,
business owner. Is
Yeah,
that my
that's
biggest hangup?
part of it. Not having that feeling like somebody's like even so many times I have clients that are like, well, I talked to my CPA, I talked to my bookkeeper, but I'm not getting it, or they're not like responsive or whatever. And it's like you're speaking two different languages because literally you're speaking two different languages. Um, and not everybody speaks accountant, and not everybody speaks architecture, and not everybody
Yeah,
speaks small business, right? And so I'm always looking for the question behind the question of my clients of what's the root of that question, and not to speak in terms of like cash flow and amortization and cash basis and that type of thing, but to not even make them ask the question of what does that mean, right?
yeah,
Start where they are and work backwards into that skill set, because it is a skill set that business owners adapt to, right?
yeah, yeah. Now,
So
you've mentioned a few different roles. You've mentioned accountant and CPA and
mhm.
bookkeeper, and I, in the introduction, I called you a virtual CFO, and I think this ties um, to one of Mark's comments there. He says there's a big difference in accounting and financial management. So what are these different roles? I just briefly, obviously, without digging
Yeah.
into too deep and getting into the lingo, but what's the difference between the accountant, bookkeeper, CPA, and the CFO?
Right. So your compliance, right? Like all of us could be called an accountant, right? That's a background. We learn accountant. It's a very generic term. But
Yeah,
looking on the timeline of things, right? Our bookkeeper is working up to today and they're going to put the things in the right spot, get their gold star, and here's your reports. You got it. Things are in the right place. A CPA is generally used as same as an enrolled agent for taxes. They can also do bookkeeping, that type of thing. But again, their training is how are things going up to now, and they can do some forecasting and things. But generally, this is their happy place. Again, they like that gold star. They like to be right, um, and they need this world is for compliance. Like the most boring, mundane, keep me out of jail, fine, compliance. Ugh. Don't get me wrong. I love my bookkeeping friends. I love my CPA friends, but you will not find me doing this work ever.
well, that's that creative part of you coming out there.
Right. Yeah. God bless them for doing it because Lord knows I don't want to be doing it. And generally, when people are hiring these positions, they're like, that's like the question behind the question is they want to be able to see this stuff. And since they don't know the language that's being spoken over on this side, they almost don't even know what questions to ask, right? Like they don't know how to verbalize their anxieties and worries in terms that this person's going to understand because they'll say, well, it's on your income statement. Here, let me get you a different income statement that shows you by month, and then you can just see it, right? Like it's almost that curse of knowledge. Well,
Yeah,
I'm what I'm looking at, so everybody knows what this is, right? You're just so tax planning, keeping you out of jail, that type of thing. And sometimes they just extrapolate to the future of, well, this is the direction that you're going on. It's just going to be a straight line of whatever's going on is what's going on. Not taking into account, well, these are the changes that I want to try. These are the experiments that I run. These are the clients that I have coming up, and being able to look at this strategy as a whole and saying, hang on a second, you got to up your prices by about 20% because that last hire that you made, they're awesome. And they're actually creating more value in your business. So to be able to break it down, um, artists, creatives, architects, don't mind giving away their services for free. They like the work and they don't mind being undercharged until it gets to be really painful,
yeah,
right? And then when it's painful, they're like, what is going on? Um, I want to avoid that pain altogether from the get-go. The most successful people have no qualms about these are my rates. This is the contract, and we're going to hold you to it. So those boundaries, like learning to run those boundaries, have those boundaries in your business is really exciting to watch.
yeah, yeah. That's great. Nicole, hi Nicole. She says most CPAs look back, which is exactly what Megan was just describing. And CFO will look forward. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're. That's exactly what we're talking about. Perfect statement there. And Mark says accountants usually don't make good CFOs. Yeah, yeah. I think I think that's part of the beauty of what you're talking about, and the passion that you obviously bring to this, Megan, is that um, you have that strategy in mind. You understand and you have that creativity in your blood, and then you're marrying these things up, and then how do we marry these things up, make them understandable,
Yeah.
right?
The
For
point is to
for
not like
creative.
brute force it, right? Like
Yeah,
sometimes you just try to brute force. Um, and gentle, creative. Remember, you're talking to creative people. These are creative people who, in architects, I love working them because they get the spreadsheets. They get it, right? I mean, they understand it. Sometimes they ignore it, but they catch on much quicker.
yeah. This is true. Mark says I always found it interesting how project management is so focused, um, but pricing is not. And we went through that again. I'm going to tie it back to my pro practice class last week or 2 weeks ago, and we talked about, well, how would we come up, whether we're charging hourly or fixed fee or whatever the the pricing methodology is we still have to understand what our hourly rate or rates, depending on employees and such, have to be. So we started, okay, well, what do we have to include in this? And we used some hypothetical numbers, and we pulled some numbers out of the air. We came up with about a $500 an hour number, and that got some big eyeballs in the room. Again, we're kind of making that up, but hey, all of you architects out there, think about that. $500 an hour, maybe you ought to charge it. But trying to come up with some reality behind, this is why we need to charge this much per hour, or put this in our pricing model, because I also know a lot of architects that they're pulling some of those numbers out of the hour, or they're comparing. Well, I know such and such is charging about this much, or this is the going rate, or whatever. I've got questions, right? If that's the going rate, but it doesn't cover your debt, seems like we might have an issue at this point.
And what you think that they're charging might not be, I mean, they have their external rate, but companies also have an internal rate that they're charging per hour, right? Like how much stuff are they giving out for free in their services, and working late at night because I just got to do this one thing that turns into a 3-hour, oh, it's okay, I did it while I was watching a movie with my family.
Yep.
All these little workarounds that we justify. It's always surprising to my clients how much work they actually put when we start doing a process audit, how much work they actually put into a job versus what they think they're going to put into a job.
Yeah, that's a great point. I worked with somebody one time that, just, I guess, continue on this tangent a little bit. He was fastidious about documenting all of his time. And he's working on our website. And this is a lesson for another day. We should not have been designing our own website, but he was. And we realized at some point that we got a website, right? It wasn't a good website, but we had a website. And because he had documented every hour, and part of it might have been watching a movie with his family and all these things that you're talking about, we ended up with $100,000 website. It wasn't a good website, but we had a website. And to your point, it was, and most people thankfully don't go to the level that he did with documenting his time, because there's a line somewhere. But I think that's a great extreme example of, hey, a lot of times we're spending a lot more on these projects than we actually think we are. So don't have $100,000 website that's not a good one.
If you're also thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't want to track my time. I mean, that's one of the things that you also need to extend some grace to yourself. Let's do it for a week. Close enough is going to be good enough. We just need something to compare it to, guess and test is the name of the game, really.
Yeah. That's a great point. Let's see. Chris said, it took me a while to learn that on smaller projects, I shouldn't just be charging the going rate, but also figuring the opportunity cost for time that I could be working on my bigger project. So if client A wants me to work on a small project, it's going to take me away from client B that has a larger project with a bigger fee. Client A, a bigger fee than client A is going to pay a premium. So that's, again, we're getting into strategy at that point. And that's really, I mean, again, that's one of the reasons that I love our conversations, because I hear you looking at strategies. It's not just, hey, what's the going rate? It's not just, what was my tax? It's not all those things. It's how do we not only, how do we do this, but how do we become successful doing this? And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, intentionally successful about this. I think a lot of us are missing that boat as well.
It's like business planning stops once we open the doors, right? There's, yes, like if we had an annual business plan or even a quarterly business plan, it doesn't have to be the whole fat book of all the different things, but this is what I'm going to concentrate on for the next 3 months. This is what's been working. I'm going to keep going. And this is an experiment that I want to run and see how it goes, right? This is where the fun comes back into business. Experiment, try it, like lean into the failure and say, yep, you know what? We gave it a try and this is what we learned. And this is what we're going to do next because of what we learned. So you're always buying, whether you are making a profit or not, you are buying your education inside your business. And I want to make sure that you're retaining those lessons. And like you said, that they are intentional lessons
Yeah.
and information that's going to help us in the future.
Yeah. That's awesome. As you were saying that, I was thinking, okay, there are a lot of people that can and do start businesses with one-page business plans. Fantastic. Knock yourself out. I've actually got a template for that that I use in one of my pro practice classes if you want it. It's not mine. I'll share it with you.
Sure.
Share the resource, and you can use that to create your business plan. But how are you going to execute on that? Because I think you're right. This gets into working on our business versus working in our business, certainly. But yeah, if you're doing this, shouldn't you have fun executing on that business plan, one page or otherwise? I love that way that you say that.
Yeah. I get a lot of calls from people who had a business plan and then they open their doors and a year later they're going, this is not what happened. Yep.
Oh yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Let's work it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people. Okay, I got my business plan. It's in this binder. They open the doors, close the binder, and then 5 years down the road, where are we? Well, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. You close the binder. We'll see. Um, as we look forward to November and your talk, which is going to be titled, do I have the title here? It's Can
Financial
I do it
statements are
off?
mostly useless, I think. And it's right after
Yeah.
breakfast.
So wake up with Megan, have breakfast. Yeah. Have breakfast. Find out, why your financial plan is mostly useless, or financial statements, not financial plan.
Oh, yeah.
Financial statements are mostly useless, and then by lunch, you'll have a lot better idea of what to do and how to plan for working with your money. Is there anything that we can do? Again, 5 weeks away. Is there anything that we can do for anybody that's planning to join us in Austin? Is there something we can do to prepare, whether it's actual work or just getting in a certain frame of mind, so that we can make the most out of your session in Austin?
Yes. So you're actually going to be receiving an Excel document so you can make a really quick and dirty cash flow forecast for the next 3 to 6 months. And I always say bring whatever your closest assumptions are, but the better your numbers, the better result you're going to get from that. So if you have a decent understanding of your income statements in terms of how much it costs to run your business every month, whether you're working on clients or not, have a good understanding of what you're paying your people and what your cash balance is in your bank. The last piece that is like, you get a gold star if you have this, is if you know what your upcoming projects are, like what you have left yet that's out there to collect. Either that is billed and not paid, or worked and not billed, or signed and not worked, like all of those different phases. What's coming up for you so we can plot those out and see where that cash is going to land.
I love that. I love that. I asked this question towards the end of all of these conversations because um, I I like going to conferences.
Me too.
I've spent a lot of time going to conferences and speaking at conferences and all of that. But they're just like we need to be intentionally successful, having some intent going into all of these talks and preparing for all these talks are just going to help you get the most that you possibly can out of listening to Megan and working with the Excel spreadsheet that she's going to provide. Chris says, grab your coffee early because Megan is coming out of the gate swinging. I have no doubt about that.
No pressure. I got this.
Yeah, well, you've got it. I know you've got it. You demonstrate that every time that we talk. I love it. So for all of you that have joined us, let's just go down the list. Mark is here, and Chris is here, and Christian is here, and Nicole and Eric. Seems like I missed somebody. I apologize if I forgot to give you a shout out. Let me just go down the list one more time. Maybe I got everybody. But for all of you that are here joining us, thank you. Thanks for joining this conversation. Of course, you could be watching this in the recorded version later. So thanks for watching. A reminder that the reason that we're here talking with Megan is that in 5 weeks we're going to be in Austin, Texas, November 1st through 3rd for the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting. It's a business conference specifically designed for small firm entrepreneur architects. And let me put this up on the screen. Down at the bottom left corner right now is the URL where you can find more information, smallfirmconference.com. Go there. Learn more about Megan, learn more about all of our speakers, all of our sessions, and then register for this conference. You're not going to be disappointed. I've said this several times. I'm not a big part of the planning for this conference, which I'm also not disappointed about. There are others more qualified to be doing that work, but the format of this conference is nearly identical to what I call probably the best conference that I ever went to. SMPS, Society for Marketers of Professional Services. That's where the marketing and business development people of your A&E firms, it's their association basically. Their top level conference is called the Pinnacle event, I think is what they call it. It's small, it's intimate, it's in one place, it's one track, so you're not going to miss any of the presentations. You don't have to choose between this one and that one. It's a single track. Everything is super high quality, and that's exactly the way that this conference is designed for you. So I'm really excited for this coming up in November, and I'm excited to have Megan there. So again, Megan Dahle, anti-accountant, virtual CFO, author of Getting Your Numbers Right, and the creator of Hiring for Profit. She's going to deliver one of these sessions, and she could be talking about why financial statements are useless. Well, mostly, maybe. All of that's happening at the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting in Austin, Texas, November 1st through 3rd. So if you're an architect that wants to learn to build a business that allows you to practice in your own way, or maybe you're the employee of a firm, or maybe you aspire to start your own thing and practice in your own way, go over to smallfirmconference.com for more info on the conference. Like I said, you're not going to be disappointed. So check it out. Join us in Austin in a few weeks. Meet Megan Dahle. Learn from Megan Dahle. It'll be worth your investment, I promise. Megan, thanks a lot for joining me today. Again, it's always great to talk to you, and thanks for
my pleasure.
Sharing your passion. Absolutely.
I can't wait for Austin. It's going to be so much. I can't
We're going to do it. We're going to go see those bats that fly out from under the bridge.
Can't wait.
If you've never been to Austin, just Google Congress Avenue, Congress Street bats. Just Google it. All right, all of you out there, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you, Megan. Obviously, thank you for doing this once again. We'll see you soon. And hey, happy Monday, everybody. Have a great day, a great week. And I'll be back Wednesday with Brian McCartney, who is another one of the speakers at the EntreArchitect Community. And he's fun too. Yeah. He's fun. See, it's starting to unfold how much fun all of this is going to be. All right. Have a great day. Great week, everybody. See you Wednesday for Brian. And if you're involved, if you want to jump into the context and clarity conversations every weekday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern on Clubhouse and 4 p.m. Eastern inside the EntreArchitect Community Facebook group. This week, we're talking about your work in the profession. Check us out today, 4 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.